Hello everyone, my name is Ahmed El Koutbia. Today I would like to share with you a video presentation on how to install Oracle Database 12c on CentOS, RHEL, or Oracle Linux 6. Currently I am using CentOS 6.8. The installation procedure discussed in this presentation should also work for other CentOS, RHEL, or Oracle Linux versions, starting with version 6.5. Okay, so we have a case study here. So let us imagine that Mr. Ghafwan, our manager, is considering to deploy Oracle 12c in our production environment, which is mainly comprised of CentOS, RHEL, and RHEL servers. As a proof of concept, Mr. Ghafwan asked us to perform the following tasks. The first thing that he would like us to do is to install and configure the Oracle 12c database on one of our CentOS 6.8 servers. The second task would be to make sure that our Oracle database 12c installation is highly secure. In this case, we need to make sure that both the firewall and SELInx they are running. And then finally, we need to make sure that, that Oracle Database 12c is accessible through the command line and web interfaces. Okay. So we have an important note here. So during this presentation, I will be using Oracle Database 12c Release 1, which can be downloaded for free from Oracle website. This version can be used by registered Oracle users for testing and evaluation purposes only. However, it should not be redistributed or deployed in production environments. Okay. So now let's talk a little bit about the agenda for this presentation. So this presentation is actually comprised of two parts. Part number one, we will talk about the setup and the preparatory work that we need to do to set up our Linux server for Oracle Database 12c installation. In part number two, we will be talking about the actual Oracle Database installation, configuration, and testing. Okay. So let's start our discussion with part number one, which will be discussed and covered during this first video. There will be another video that we will be doing for the second part. So in part number one, again, we will do or we will be working on the preparation of our Linux server for Oracle Database 12c installation. So we are curious to find out what are the things that we need to do to ensure that our Linux environment is prepared for the Oracle 12c installation. So here are the things that we need to do for this particular preparation. So what we need to do is to first make sure that we can meet the minimum hardware and software requirements for the Oracle Database 12c installation. So we will be spending a little bit of time to check whether our system meets the requirements for this installation. The second thing is that we need to work on making sure that our network is properly configured. We will be discussing what are the things that we need to do to make sure that that our network and network configuration supports the Oracle 12c installation. We'll also be spending a little bit of time talking about the Ntp server. Why is it important to set up an Ntp server and make sure that it's up and running? So we will do that. Next, we will be talking, we will start the discussion regarding security, and that's basically comprised of two things. Number one would be to ensure that SELInx is in the enforcing mode and running. Also make sure that the firewall is running, and we need to make sure also that we open the appropriate ports that we need for Oracle Database 12c. We also need to install a set of packages or RPM packages that are required for this Oracle installation. So we will go through that list. And also there are some kernel parameters that we need to configure to make sure that they are configured so that we can meet the requirement of this Oracle database installation. And then we will continue, and the next part will be to create an account for the Oracle user and to create the groups associated with this account, and also the directory structure that is required for this installation. So that's something that we will also do. And then we will be also setting some limits in terms of resource limits, system resource limits for the Oracle user, to prevent a situation where we exhaust all our system resources. So it is a good idea to set limits for a specific user like Oracle. And also, finally, we need to configure our environment to ensure that the Oracle user can access the home directory, the Oracle database home directory and base directories. So that's basically setting up the environment variables for the Oracle user. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about the hardware and software requirements that we need to meet to be able to have a successful Oracle Database 12c installation. Please note that the Oracle Database 12c installation can be done on a physical server, or it can also be done on a virtual machine, as long as the following requirements are met. First, we need to ensure that we have a minimum of 2 GB of RAM. We need to have the disk space of 8 GB, and also the server or the virtual machine should be running CentOS, RHEL, or Oracle Linux starting with version 6.5. So this installation has been tested on version 6.5, 6.7, and 6.8, and it has been I was able to install the Oracle database on these versions successfully. We need to have access also to a local or remote repository to be able to install the RPM packages that are required for this particular presentation. So that's basically, I'll just go ahead and, so these are basically the requirements, the hardware and the OS requirements for this particular installation. Okay. So now let's start with this. So let's check whether our server meets these requirements. I'll just go ahead and go to my, terminal. Okay, good, wonderful. So the first thing that we need to do, I'll just become root here. So the first thing that we would like to test is the memory requirements. So let's check whether we have enough memory. So to do that, there are many ways to do it. Here is one way to do that. Proc mem info, and then I will do grep mem total. Okay. So as you can see here, we have plenty of memory. I have about 16 GB of RAM. So this server meets the memory requirement. Next, let's look at our disk space. So if I do ls block, so you can see that here I have an SDA. In fact, I have two drives. I have SDA here, which is my main hard drive. It has about 500 GB. So you can see here the value is 465 GB. So I have plenty of disk space. Later on, we will talk about the partitions that are required for this Oracle Database 12c installation, which are essentially, as you can see from this, they are LVM partitions. But we can talk about that a little bit later. So let's also check if we have, in terms of CPUs, how many CPUs we have. So you can do ls CPU, and that will provide you a list of so here what we have is we have 4 cores, and then we have 2 threads. So we have a total of 8 CPUs that are available. So I guess we have plenty of processing power to run the Oracle database. Okay. So the next thing that we will look at is the actual operating system requirements. So let's look at what version of Linux we are running. So there are also many ways to do it. Here is one way. So we will do lsb release-a. So here we can see that I'm running CentOS version 6.8. That's the version that I'm running. And again, this installation will also work for CentOS, Oracle Linux, or RHEL version starting with version 6.5. Okay, and to complete this part, let's look at what kind of repositories do we have here. So I will just do, yum repo list. So that will provide me with a list of the repositories. Notice that I'm actually using the CentOS remote repositories for this presentation. So one of the things while we are talking about repositories, obviously we need to make sure that all our RPM packages are up to date. And to do that, the command is yum update-y. Now, normally when you run this command, this will take a long time, but again, because I would like to make this presentation, I want to save time, so I've already run it. So it was, there were about like 700 meg of packages that need to be updated. So it will take some time, okay, to do this, all right? So that basically completes whatever we need for the OS and hardware requirements to install Oracle Database 12c. All right. So now let's talk about the network configuration that we need for this installation. So let me go back to my, yes, okay. Yeah, so Network Manager can conflict with our existing network configuration. So it is recommended that if we are doing Oracle Database 12c installation in a production environment, to stop it and disable it. So let's go ahead and first check the status of the Network Manager. Okay, so it is running, so let's go ahead and stop it. And let's also make sure that it's disabled. In other words, we don't want it to start when the system is rebooted. Excuse me. Okay, good. So now we have stopped and disabled our network manager. And also what we need to make sure is that if we have any NICs or network cards, we need to make sure that they are not managed by, or network interfaces, that they are not managed by the by network manager. So to do that, let's look at the network configuration for our network interface. So I'll just go ahead to cd etc sysconfig network scripts. And here I only have one network interface, or one net interface, which is EM1. So let's go ahead and open that file. So as you can see from this configuration, first notice that with this interface, that please make sure that on boot this variable it says yes, which means that when we boot the operating system, this interface will come up automatically. So, and the other thing that we need to look at is nm controlled variable. So notice that the value of this variable is yes. That means that this network interface is controlled or managed by the network manager. So we don't want that. So let's change that value to no. Okay. So, and let's start our network service. Okay. Okay, good. I just want to check that I can ping the outside world. Yeah, it looks good. All right. So the next thing that we would be looking at is to look at our host name configuration. So for this system, if I do host name here, it says that dbserver71.inosoft.com. And obviously, if you want to change your host name, you can just go to the configuration file, etc sysconfig network. So here you can see that this is where your host name is defined, and then you can change the value. Once you change that value, please make sure to reboot your system. Okay. So now we will be talking a little bit about what type of naming resolution we need for our Oracle database installation. So we can there are different ways to do this. So we can use a name server, and we can put that name if we have, for instance, this host name or the corresponding IP address of this host name is defined in a naming server. So we can just go to the file etc resolve.conf and just add the name server over there, and then it will do the naming resolution. But in my case, I don't have a name server configured, so I will just use a local naming resolution by using the configuration file /etc/hosts. That's the file we are going to be using here. First, I'd like to know what is my IP address. So if I do IP address show and then do grep inet, so here that will tell me that my IP address is 192.168.1.71. So the network is 192.168.1.0, because you can see here that I have the prefix of, or netmask of prefix of 24. Okay, so let's add an entry in this file. So since we know the IP address and our host name, let's go ahead and add an entry here. So I will just put 192.168.1.71, and that is going to be DB server 71, then DB server 71.inosoft.com. Okay. All right. So if I do ping DB server 71, that should work. All right. So that's what we need to do in terms of the naming resolution, is just make sure to add an entry that basically maps your host name with your IP address, in this case in the /etc hosts. All right. So the next topic that we are going to talk about is our Ntp configuration. So I'll just go ahead and go back to our presentation to make sure we are on track. So yes, the next thing that we'll be discussing is our Ntp configuration. So our hardware clock tends to be less accurate over time. In other words, we can use our hardware clock to have the time and date. But the issue with that is that it can be less accurate over time, especially as our hardware is getting old. So some of the Oracle database applications will simply not work properly if our system time is not accurate. In a production environment, we need to rely on Ntp servers to provide us with an accurate time. So let's first check whether we have an Ntp server installed or package installed, and then let's make sure that this service is up and running. Okay. So what I'll do now is first do service ntp d status. So here it tells me that yes, I do have the package installed, but the service is not running. So before running it, let's first ensure that we have the right Ntp servers configured. So to do that, let me go to the configuration file for this service, ntp.conf. So, and if you look for server, okay, server entries, and you will notice that here I have 4 NTP. These are default NTP servers that are defined when CentOS version 6.5 or 6.8 is installed. So it looks like these servers have already been pre-configured. Now, in your environment, you may be using an NTP server that provides a lot more accuracy than these. And then in that case, you just need to replace, the NTP servers right here. This one, whichever server you will be using. Notice here the presence of this variable called iBurst, which means basically to speed up the initial synchronization with the NTP server. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to be using these NTP servers that are provided. So I'll just go ahead and exit, and I'll just start the NTP service. Okay, and they will also make sure that it's running when it's enabled. So I will do check config. All right. So that basically takes care of our NTP server configuration. All right. So we will continue then our presentation. Another thing that we need to look at and just make sure it's done properly is to look at the file system layout. So the question here is what type of file system layout we need to have to be able to successfully install the Oracle database 12c. And I have a file system layout that I used myself for this installation. But please note that this is just this is just an example. You don't have to follow this, but this is just an example, but to illustrate this point. So let's take a minute to look at this. The first thing I'd like you to notice is the size of the temp directory. So in this case, our temp directory is 4 GB. I like to be generous here. Oracle does require that the size of the /temp should be at least 1 GB. I would say that would be the proper size for that directory. Another thing to notice that I also have a separate partition here for the var directory. As you know, the var directory, we will have in the var directory the log files. We will also have other servers like FTP and HTTP, and their contents tend to grow over time. So I just go ahead, I gave it about 8 GB, size of 8 GB. And then finally, notice the /u01, it has 50 GB. This is the directory where we can install Oracle and other products related to Oracle. So I decided to really give it a very generous size to accommodate to accommodate the installation of Oracle database 12c and other products related to that. So that's basically the directory structure that I have, and it works. So let's look at that. So let's do df-h. So notice that basically I have pretty much the same directory structure that you saw in the slide here. The only difference here is that you notice that I'm using LVMs. I'm using a volume group called VG_InnoSoft. And I'm using logical volumes for each one of the directories that we looked at. The only one that's not logical volume is the boot partition, because the size of this partition does not change. The reason, just a side note, so with the exception of the boot partition, all the above partitions are logical volumes. Why do we do that? We just, as you know, logical volumes, they provide us the flexibility to resize partitions such as home, /home, or /var if we need to, and that's good to use logical volumes. They are good and they help us with that. Okay. Next, I like to talk right now about the swap space requirements. So let's look at a slide here. So there is a general swap space is used obviously to prevent memory overflow situations. This can be done by storing some of the data in our permanent storage for further processing. So the general rule of thumb is that if the size of our RAM is between 2 to 16 GB, then the swap space should be equal to the size of the RAM. On the other hand, if the size of the RAM is more than 16 GB, the size of our swap space should be 16 GB. So let's see if we are meeting that requirement. So to find out how much memory we have, we've already done that, but just to remind you, it's proc info, and then I'll just grab for. This is one of the variables. So you can see that we have about 16 GB of RAM available in this system. So let's, to figure out how much swap space do we have, I'll just do swap on -s. And notice that it's also equivalent to 16 GB, yeah? Just notice, please note that this is swap space partition is also an LVM partition. Okay. So here we have, since our the size of our RAM is 16 GB, then we've decided to make sure that our swap space also, the size of the swap space is 16 GB to be consistent with the rule that we saw earlier. All right, good. So I'll keep going. Now let's talk about the packages. What are the packages that are required for our database installation? So here just basically we need to look at, there are a list of packages that we need to have to be able to install Oracle database successfully. And to make this a little bit easy, I've just added a slide here which basically lists all these packages. Okay. Now, to simplify the process of installing all the packages required, I store their name in a file which will be read by an awk regular expression and passed to the yum command. So let's have a look at that. All right. So if I look at my home directory, you can see this txt file. So if I do, or less rather, I prefer to go ahead and do less, excuse me. Yeah, so here, this is just a text file that contains the list of all the packages that we need for this Oracle database installation, okay? So let's go ahead and find out how we can use this file to install all the packages we need. So for that, we will do yum install and then awk. Yeah, so this is the command that we need to type to be able to, or to run, to be able to install the packages. I think I need one more quote, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, right there. Go ahead and install it. Okay, so while the packages are installing, let's move ahead and talk about the next topic. So the next topic will be obviously security. First, we need to make sure that the right versions of the SELInx packages are installed. So let me just show you this. So here, to make sure that SELInx is working properly, we need to ensure that these two packages, SELInx-policy and SELInx-policy-targeted, that the version is 3.7. .19, and then starting with 231. So if you have something like dash 250 or 260, it will be fine, but just this first part should be 3.7.19. Okay, so let's go ahead and check if we have the right packages. Just remember that we have here 231. Okay, so to do that, what I'll do is this. I will do yum list, and then yum list, and then grep. Just excuse me, just 1 second. Yeah, grep SELInx, and then the name of the package is policy. Just let's do this. So here you can see that I have first a package called SELInx policy, which is 3.7.19 to 92. It looks perfectly fine. So this is so this is the version, and then also you have another package here which is SELInx policy targeted, and then you have the version number right there. Yeah. So obviously you can have more information about these packages if you do yum info, and then you can just do SELInx policy, for instance, and you can obtain more information about each individual package that way. Okay. So we do have the right versions of the packages for SELInx. Next, let's check if SELInx is running right now. So to do that, we will do SE status or run the command. So it says here that SELInx is enabled and it's enforcing. Okay. One question that we could be asking here is, what if SELInx says it's permissive? It's very possible in your environment that it says permissive. What's the procedure to follow? Well, first we need to look at the file etc. There is a configuration file for etc Linux. So if you go to etc sysconfig SELInx, and then you can see here that it says that SELInx is enforcing. Okay. In your case, if it says it's permissive, all you have to do is to change the value of enforcing to permissive. Okay. That's one. And secondly, if you don't want to reboot your system, you do set enforce, because that change will not take effect immediately. So to make sure that it takes effect, you do set enforce 1, set enforce 1, sorry about that. And then there is a command called get enforce that will enable you to obtain the status of your SELInx. All right. So that's all we need to do for SELInx. Now let's move to the next topic. So now we will continue the conversation related to security, and now the next topic we will be talking about is the firewall configuration. And the question here is, what kind of firewall configuration we need? Because if you remember, our manager, he requested that our firewall or the OS firewall should be up and running. So, and if that is the case, what we need to know is what are the ports that we need to make sure that are open, so that we can run successfully our Oracle database. So here I have a slide that summarizes that. So we need to have the SSH port open, obviously, and we also need to have the HTTPS port open, which is 443. We need to have port 1521 port open. This is for the Oracle Transparent Network Substrate TNS listener. Moving forward, I will just call it the Oracle listener for simplicity. And then here we have another port that we need to make sure that is open, which is 5500 for Enterprise Manager. So these are the ports that we need to open. Now, to make this process a little bit easy, I've also have a slide which basically will summarize some of the rules that we need to run, to be able to support this. So the first couple of rules, they are straightforward. These two rules here, I just added one more thing here. We are saying that yes, we want to open port 1521 and port 5500, but these ports, they will be available only to hosts that are in this network, which is 192.168.1.0 So basically, these are the rules that we need to add to our, to our IP tables. All right, so let's see how we can do that. First, I would like to check to make sure that my IP tables, the IP tables is running. So I'll do service IP tables status. Okay, so it looks like our IP tables are running. Also, just to make sure that everything is fine, that I want to make sure that the firewall comes up when the system reboots. I will do check config. I just want to test if it is actually enabled, and I will do grep IP tables. So this basically tells me that the firewall is actually enabled. In other words, for run level 3 and run level 5. Run level 3 is the multi-user text mode, and run level 5 is the multi-user graphical mode. Which means that if I reboot the system, automatically the firewall will be started. Okay? So good. All right, to just be on the safe side, I like to always do something like this, to do service IP tables save. And if we do that, notice that any rules, any runtime rules or rules that we can add via the shell, they will automatically be persisted in a file which is called IP tables. It's under etc sysconfig. So let's go ahead and have a look at that file. So you can see that in my configuration, I already have a rule for SSH, so we don't need to add that. And then I have two additional rules to add or to open these two ports, which is 5900 and 5901. Please note that you don't need these ports for your Oracle installation. The reason I have them open because I'm using VNC, and these are the ports that VNC uses, the VNC service uses. So I had to open them. Okay. Now let's actually see what are the rules that we need to add to, or add the rules that we need for our Oracle database installation. So I'm just going to quit out of this. To make this process a little bit easy, so I have already created a script that will help us with that. So I'm just going to go to root bin. And if you look at this particular directory, let's have a look at this script. So this is just the best script. I didn't want to type these rules because it will take a long time. So I commented out the rule for adding access to port 22 or SSH, and they have three rules that will be that we looked at earlier for providing access to SSH. No, I'm sorry, not SSH, but HTTPS. The other rule here, this one is for the Oracle listener, and this is for the enterprise manager. Okay. So let's go ahead and just run this script. Okay, and then I will do service IP table save. So let's have a look again at the file and see what's in it. Yeah. So it seems like from this output that we have HTTPS, it's running. And then also it seems like here we have the port for the listener is also open. And also the port for the enterprise manager also it's open. So that's basically what we need. And then after we finish this, obviously we need to restart our IP tables. So I'll do service IP tables restart. Okay. So that will complete the configuration that we need for Iptables. Now we will go ahead and move to the next topic. So the next topic that we'll be talking about is the kernel parameters configuration. Please note that all the kernel parameters that we'll be discussing in these sections, they will be included in the /etc/sysctl.conf configuration file. Again, please note that discussing the meaning of each kernel parameter configuration required for Oracle Database 12c installation is beyond the scope of this presentation. Basically, it will take us a long time if we have to go through each kernel variables. What I would like you, what I would encourage you to do if you would like to know about this is to just do some search on the web. There are plenty of documentation that defines each kernel parameter. So to make this process a little bit easy, I have there are two things that I have done. First, these are the kernel parameters that we need to add, and they are in different categories. So there are some kernel parameters that will essentially manage the virtual memory, others for the shared memory, others for the semaphores. This is for the ephemeral network ports, and then this is for optimizing the network settings. And then here we have other parameters for asynchronous. Actually, there is a typo here, asynchronous I/O requests. And there's another parameter here for kernel panic on OOPS. And then there is finally another configuration for the file handlers. All right. So to simplify or to make this process a little bit easy, again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I will just go ahead and show you that I have added all these configuration parameters to a sample file which I have under etc directory. So if I do ls sysctl star, I should be able, so notice this is the original file and this is the sample file that I created. So here is what I'll do is I like to make a backup of any existing configuration. So I'll just do move sysctl.conf to sysctl.conf, and let's call this orig, which means this is the original file that came with the CentOS installation. And then I will go ahead and then rename the file that I created, sample to sysctl.conf. Okay, so let's quickly look at this file. So if I go towards the end, yeah, so if you look at this, these are the kernel parameters that we need for the Oracle database configuration. So one thing I can say is that towards the end of this presentation, I will provide my email. So if you would like to have a copy of these configuration files or scripts that I'm using during the presentation, please send me an email, and I will be happy to share with you these configuration files. Okay. So that basically will complete the configuration that we need for kernel parameters. Next, and to make sure that the changes are, there are some, you will find some documentation that suggests that we need to reboot our system. I don't think it's a good idea, especially if you are in a production environment, to reboot a system. So I'll just go ahead and do sysctl-p, and then basically these parameters will be active, or the changes will be take effect immediately. All right. So one more topic that we will be talking about now. We've completed the configuration that we need for configuration parameters. So let's now talk about the groups and the user that we need to configure for this Oracle database installation. Excuse me. Yeah, so basically what we will be discussing now is how to create the Oracle account and the groups that we need for this particular installation. So prior to the installation of this Oracle Database 12c, we need to create an Oracle user. I've created an Oracle user to just make it easy, and the primary group called oInstall and two secondary groups. The first one will be called DBA and the second one is oper or operator. So here you go. I have a slide here that will basically, excuse me, right there. This is the slide that will, so we need to create a group called oInstall and give it this GID, and then there is a DBA and then oper. So let's go quickly through these groups. So a quick definition. oInstall, this is the Oracle Central Inventory group that we will be using, and then DBA, users in this group have database administration privileges. And oper or operator, users in this group have limited DBA privileges. Okay, I've already created the Oracle user and these groups prior to this presentation. I need to do this to make it easy for me to deliver this presentation. I just felt it would be best to just create them beforehand. So let's just have a look at that. And again, if you want to create them, please excuse me, but I'll just follow these commands, just to run them, and then automatically the three groups will be created. And here, let's look at the last command, which is the user add. Here we are using, we are creating a user called Oracle, who has this ID, and the primary group for this user is called oInstall, and there are secondary groups for this user, and namely DBA and oper. Okay, so if you just cut and paste these commands, you will be able to create the groups and the user Oracle. So if I do ID Oracle, now you notice that here I do have a user called Oracle, and the oInstall it's the primary group for the user, and then I have DBA and oper as the secondary groups for these particular users. To check whether the groups are actually there, so you can do cat group, and then you do grep DBA, for instance, and you can see that it's there. Oper, same thing, it's there, and then finally you can look at the oInstall. All these are defined in the etc group file. Just one more thing, please make sure when you create the user Oracle to just do password Oracle. Make sure that the user that you create, there is a password associated with it, because moving forward, I would recommend that you log out and log in as the user Oracle. And obviously, if you would like to log in as user Oracle, you need to have a password. So the next thing that we will be discussing is how to set resource limits for the Oracle user. So we'll just continue our presentation. Yeah, setting OS resource limits for the Oracle user. So first we might be asking the question why we need to do that. Well, the purpose of setting resource limits for users is to prevent a system-wide crash that could be caused if an application such as Oracle is allowed to exhaust all the OS resources, especially under extremely heavy load or workload. So that's why we need to set some resource limit. Now the question is, what are the resources that we are thinking about? Well, one of them is for instance, the file descriptors. Second one would be processes, and the third one would be the stack segments. So let's look at the resource limits that we need to set. And there are some soft and hard limits. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time to discuss this in detail, so you can again check some of the online references, and they can provide you plenty of information about this. Okay. So to make this process a little bit easier, again, I created a sample file that we could use. So what I'll do now, let me become root. So if I go to etc security and I do ls limit star, So you can see that I have two files. I have limits.conf, which is the original file that came with the operating system, and my sample file. So let's just have, we are curious, we just want to find out what's in this limits.conf. Notice everything is commented out. Pretty much there is nothing. I mean, it just gives you some instructions of how you can add limits, resource limits for a particular user. Now let's do this. Excuse me. I will just go ahead and back up the original file. So I will do move limits.conf to limits.conf.orig, and then here I will just rename the sample file I have. So I'll do limits.conf.sample to limits.conf. Okay, so now let's look at my limits.conf file. So if you go towards the end of the file, you will notice that I have set again limits for the Oracle user, for soft and hard limits for file descriptors, for processes, or for stack segments. All right, good. So, okay, so we will continue the presentation. So the next thing that I would like to discuss is what kind of directory structure we need to create and associated ownership so that we can install the Oracle database. So let's go ahead and create the directory structure that we need for this installation. So as root, I am going to just say make dir. Excuse me, I'll just clear whatever I have there already. I'll do make dir -p, and then here u01, and then app Oracle. Okay, the -p option, obviously it will create the directory and subdirectories. Okay. And let's change the ownership of this. So I will do chown to make sure that it's owned by the user Oracle and the group O install. And then I'll provide that for all the, starting with the root directory, which is /u01 and all the subdirectories under that, okay? Now, if you notice that if I do now ls-ld u01, for instance, app, just curious, you notice now that this directory, which is the home, or the base, I'm sorry, the Oracle base directory, has the following ownership. The user is Oracle and the group is O install. All right. Now, the next thing that we need to do is to configure the environment, because we have already created the user Oracle, and we've created a directory structure that we will be using for the Oracle Database 12c installation. Now let's create the environment variables that we need for the to configure some environment variables for the Oracle user. So I'll just continue again to look at the presentation to make sure we are still on target. So yeah, we want to do is configure environment variables for the Oracle user. And you might be asking a question why we need to do that. Well, again, because we want to do most of the work we'll be doing it as the Oracle user. And we need to make sure, for instance, the Oracle user can access the home directory of the Oracle database to run commands to, for instance, launch the listener or access any of the utilities that are provided by the Oracle database. So here, to make this process easy again, I have here a sample file that contains essentially all the environment variables that we need to set for the Oracle user. So this is going to be in /bash_profile for this particular user. So notice that here we specify the Oracle base directory. Here we specify also the host name, our host name, and most importantly, here we specify the home directory of our Oracle database. Okay, there are some other variables that you can look at. All right. Good. So to make this process easy, so if I go to become Oracle now, So obviously, if I go to the home directory and do ls-la, and then I will do grep dot dash profile. So you notice here that I have two files. This is the original file that came with the with the installation, and this is the one that I created. Okay. So what I'll do now is I'll just go ahead, so you can, if you want, we can look at the, the file, the default one. So the default one really doesn't have much, doesn't have the configuration. So what we will do is we will go ahead, let's back up this file. So I will do move.bash underscore profile to a bash file.org, okay? And then let me go ahead and move.bash, this is the one I have, .sample to .bash, sorry, getting a little bit slow here, to bash profile. Okay, and let's look at this file. So if you notice again that in this file, essentially after this would be normally the content that you would have in the original file, and here towards the end you will see that I have added this section right here, which has all the environment variable settings that I need for this particular Oracle user. Notice again that these settings are not for the root user, they are for the Oracle user. And another thing that's important, after we obviously modify a bash profile, it's always recommended, obviously, to make sure, because there are two things. Either we need to log out and log in as the user Oracle to make sure that these changes take effect immediately, or we can just do source.bash underscore profile. All right, and the changes will take effect immediately for this particular user. The last thing that we are going to talk about is just how do you go about the business of downloading. So we are getting right now towards the end of this our presentation on how to set up our environment. Actually, we haven't concluded. It says this will conclude the presentation, but we haven't. There's one more thing that I'd like us to do, is to make sure that we have the Oracle packages that we need to start the installation, which we will do in the next in part number 2 of this presentation, which will be on a separate video. So let's do this first. Yeah, so as I mentioned, we will be installing the evaluation version of Oracle Database 12c, which can be downloaded again for free from the Oracle website by registered users. So let's go. I just want to quickly go through this process with you here for a moment. So if we try to search for this, so how are we going to do this now? I'll just type here downloads Oracle 12c on Linux. So, and then what you can do, you can see here Oracle Database 12c Release 1. You click on that. So that takes you directly to the Oracle website. You need to accept the license agreement. And then notice if I click, these are the 2 zip files that we need. So these are the 2 zip files that we need for Oracle Database 12c. So we need to download both of them. The first one is about 1.6 gig, so they are really large files, and the second one is about 1 gig. So if you click on one to download it, let's see what happens. So that will take us to the Oracle sign-in page. So if you are an Oracle user, you can just go ahead and put your credentials and you'll be able to download the files. If you are not, then just go ahead and create your Oracle user ID and password, and then you will be able to access and download these zip files. Good. Now, to make this process a little bit easy for us, is that I already downloaded these files. So I will just go ahead, and I have them here in my desktop. If you go here and you say Oracle software, so I have the two files right there. Okay. So I will just go ahead and copy them to the Oracle base directory. So let me do that. So if I do move home, Oracle desktop, and then Oracle software, let's move this directory to U01 app Oracle. Yeah, let's put it there. That will take a few seconds. One more thing, that while we're copying the two zip files, we need to make sure that obviously the two zip files are owned by the user Oracle and the group O install. Okay, and we will do that in a moment. If they are not, then please make sure that you change their ownership to the user Oracle and then the group O install. So we'll just wait a few seconds here to get these files moved. Okay, it looks like it's already done. So if I go to U01, so first again I will check if I do ls here -l. Notice that I have the two zip files. You can also have an idea about their size. You do just l-lh. So notice the first one is 1.6 gig and the second one is almost 1 GB, okay? So the next thing that we need to do is to just go ahead and unzip these files. Unzip. So that would be unzipping the first file, and let's go ahead and unzip the second one. Yeah, so once these two files are extracted, what we can see here is that there is a creation of a directory called database. I like to have this directory under my Oracle base directory, so I will do move database, the whole directory where I have the extracted files, move it to the parent, and I will show you what the parent is in a moment. So if I do this and do pwd, so the parent is /u01/app/oracle. So under this, we should have a directory called database. So in the next presentation, what we need to do is go to this directory, and you will see a file here called the run installer. So that's the one that we will be running to install our Oracle database. Okay. So this will complete all the steps required to configure and prepare our Linux environment for Oracle Database 12c installation. So I will just go ahead and get my slides back again. Yeah, this will include, conclude part 1 of our video presentation. And basically, one more thing, if you need to obtain again a copy of the sample configuration files and scripts that I have used in this presentation, please send me an email, and the following are my contact details. Okay. So so thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you again in part number 2 of this presentation. Bye.